We're following a number of legal developments surrounding the investigations into the January 6th attack on the Capitol, as well as Donald Trump's effort to overturn the results of the 2020 election. The January 6th Select Committee last week voted to unanimously subpoena Trump for documents and testimony related to the insurrection. And we're still waiting for that subpoena to be formally delivered. It was initially expected earlier this week. And while the exact timing of the subpoena is still unclear, the Washington Post reported yesterday that it will come by the end of the week, so that could be sometime today. In Fulton County, Georgia, the investigation of potential 2020 election interference, a federal appeals court has ruled against Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, saying he must testify before the grand jury about phone calls he made to top election officials in Georgia amid complaints from then-President Donald Trump that there had been widespread voter fraud. Graham contended he shouldn't have to answer questions about the calls, which are now part of Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis's criminal investigation into possible election interference in the state because he made them in his capacity as chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee at the time. In a unanimous ruling Thursday, a three-judge panel of the 11th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals disagreed with Graham's argument.
Yeah, and I will say, Mika, the 11th Circuit, as we were explaining a few weeks ago when we were talking about special master appeal, very conservative. It's a very conservative circuit. It's also a no-nonsense circuit. And on issues like this, they're going to rule this way most of the time. And if the 11th Circuit is there, then you're going to see the Supreme Court doing what the Supreme Court has done time and again.
Funny you should mention that.
On a lot of these issues, and just sort of swatted them away. They are not, Donald Trump may think it's his 11th Circuit and it's his Supreme Court. Will he time and time again, federal judges disabuse him of that notion that, yes, they're very ideological. They're very ideological on guns. They're very ideological on abortion. They've had these worldviews like from the time they were in law school. It's not like they picked them up when Donald Trump became president. But these questions about democracy, these questions about executive privilege, these questions about abuse by Donald Trump, they've been pretty unanimous. And here they're being very clear to Lindsey Graham in the 11th Circuit. The Supreme Court will almost positively follow. Lindsey's been trying to get out of testifying. And the 11th Circuit's like, no go, South Carolina Senator. You called the Georgia Secretary of State. You asked him if he could throw out ballots or find other ballots. You're going to testify. And right. So it's one more example. And we also had that yesterday in the Supreme Court.
Yeah, Senator Graham's argument that he was just serving his capacity as Judiciary Chairman. He's just checking in on the votes. Right. Isn't holding up so well so far. You mentioned the Supreme Court yesterday. Justice Amy Coney Barrett has denied an emergency request from a group of Wisconsin taxpayers to block the Biden administration's student loan forgiveness program. The order yesterday comes after the Brown County Taxpayers Association urged the court to rule that the president's nationwide debt cancellation plan illegally bypasses the spending powers of Congress. Barrett, who handles emergency matters arising from Wisconsin, acted alone in denying the request and did not address the full court. She also did not provide an explanation for rejecting that request. So, Joe, here you have Justice Barrett, who has been in some ways, to progressives and to Democrats, someone that they've objected to and who they didn't want to see on the court, standing up and saying, no, actually, the President of the United States, go through with this, rejecting partisanship, at least in this case.
Yeah, well, and Michael, still in quite a few cases, again, nobody should be shocked that these justices, these Federalist Society justices, are very conservative on ideological issues. Now, sometimes they surprise. Sometimes you have somebody like Gorsuch who has, I would say, a widely, conservatives would say, a wildly expansive view of the meaning of sex. when it comes to equal protection, and he took that to sexual preferences and revolutionized LGBTQ rights a year or two ago. But in these cases, it's kind of like cases that would flow out of the Nixon tapes case back in 74. In these cases involving Trump's bogus claims on the rigging of elections, or this special masters case, or Trump trying to claim executive privilege, the 11th Circuit, again, extraordinarily conservative circuit, and the United States Supreme Court, time and again, is like, now get out of here. Don't even bother us with this. And yesterday, that's exactly what Amy Coney Barrett did.
Yeah, I think the big distinction for me is these cases revolve around process as much as they do the substance of the question of law that's coming before the court. So when you're looking at the 11th Circuit, when you're looking at a decision like Amy Coney Barrett's, it is one that is consistent with how they view the process, and they view it conservatively. They, certainly if it's a political question, they're going to more or less reject it. But by and large, what you're seeing here is the 11th Circuit at every turn saying, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but this process is consistent with the constitutional principle, et cetera. And I think that's something that a lot of, particularly folks in Trump world, sort of discounted. They thought it would just be, all about the red meat, and that would be the thing that would get their judges to bite on these cases and give them what they wanted. And what these constitutionally consistent, constitutionally conservative judges said was, yeah, I like the meat, but I'm sorry, you can't serve it here. It's just not something that we're going to buy, because it is not consistent with the underlying constitutional requirements, process requirements that are also very much a part of what comes before us. And so I think we'll see more of this, Joe. And, right now, a lot of conservatives are scratching their head going, but wait a minute, I thought you guys were with us. And it's like, well, when you get the right case where you don't run into a constitutional wall, sure, but, process wall. Yeah. But right now, that seems to be where the court's landing.
Well, and Elise, just a couple of days ago, over the past couple of weeks, I've been noticing an uptick in publications, conservative publications that I read from people that I've respected in the past, and I respect a lot of the other things they write about. But suddenly talking about impeach Joe Biden. He's a lawless president. Look what he did with the student loan program. It's lawless. Our Constitution is at risk, and how dare he do this, and how dare people ever say that Donald Trump was a risk to the Constitution when he's doing this. And then Amy Coney Barrett, then Amy Coney Barrett goes, well, yeah, we're not going to even take this case. So the idea that I remember saying at the time to one of them, say, well, why don't you go through the process? And if the Supreme Court rules that it's unconstitutional, you don't have to impeach a president. Just overturn the law. That's really how it works, unless you just want to blow everything up, which is, of course, what apparently they want to do. They want to scream and shout impeach like they're owning the libs, because they somehow think that something that's now been deemed constitutional is as bad as Donald Trump actually being part of a conspiracy to commit sedition against the United States government. I'm afraid this may be a preview of what we see in Kevin McCarthy's majority.
Ooh, it's going to depend on how big of a majority. Democrats have to hope that it's going to be pretty narrow. It just makes my head hurt to think of the idea of impeaching presidents over giving away money to the American public. If that's the new standard, wow. We give away free money all the time. The nastiness of the fight that we're going to see, though, coming up, the retribution against Democrats for impeaching Donald Trump twice, no matter what their grounds are, as we all know that what happened was very valid. Donald Trump tried to start an insurrection, and he tried to use American foreign policy dollars to benefit his own political fortunes. Pretty valid. That's not going to really be, that frame of logic isn't going to be what guides the next steps going forward from the Republican majority that is probably going to arise after these November elections.